picture came from. It's almost dumbfounding because Michael is smiling in that picture. So it gives me the impression that that picture had nothing to do with January the 1st, 2009. Now, Raines couldn't get Dave into the courtroom, so he brought his picture in the courtroom. Dave came to the preliminary hearing and said, I ain't had no fight. Oscar was my friend from Santa Rita. We were cellies together, which came out in testimony. But yet, Mr. Raines wants so vehemently to paint a picture that there was a brawl or a gang fight on this train, and that was his effort to try to do that. Now, at the conclusion of Jamil's testimony comes the real offense from Mr. Raines. Raines is a pit bull. The man has no heart at all. There's no mercy in him at all. I can tell you that now. Now, he does try to acknowledge in the opening arguments that a human being died who never should have died. A man was killed that never should have been killed. This was a tragedy, he said, but a tragic accident. That's his argument. But there's no... So when he gets 15, now 17-year-old Jamil on the stand, he took a shot at Jamil. He's lucky Jamil to take a shot back with words. He challenged Jamil about why he cried. He said, Mr. Dewar, you did testify in the preliminary hearing where you saw this tape before, didn't you? Yes. Well, you didn't cry then. Well, why? He said, well, it was closer to me at that time. Honestly.
Good answer, too.
Because quite frank about it, when you're in fight mode, I'm sure that, I didn't talk to him before he went in, but I'm sure when Jamil went in the preliminary hearing, he wanted to beat the heck out of Mesley. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Fair to say. He gave Mesley the coldest look in the courtroom yesterday. On May the 18th, or whatever that date was that he went in for the preliminary hearing, he was still in fight mode. Justifiably so. Because at that point, he doesn't even know if Mesley is going to be bound over for a murder trial. So like any human being who doesn't know what's going to happen with the murderer of their loved one, he's got his own thoughts, whatever those thoughts are, and he's entitled to them.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
So when he went in, as Nigel and Jackie and all the others, had they gone in, I can already tell you where their heart was. So when he walked in, he didn't have that in his mind. You don't have time to cry when you're fighting sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes when you're fighting, you got to wipe them tears and throw some blows.
Right.
Now, you were in Vietnam?
Well, no, I just missed Vietnam.
You're just good.
I just...
You saw some battle zones though?
Not really.
Close enough.
Close enough though.
You know some men went out on those battlefields and women and cried and shot bullets.
Right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Some had to wipe it out and keep shooting.
Yeah.
So the fact that Jamil is crying, the whole courtroom having compassion for this teenager. Here comes Raines. Yeah, right. Is that what he said?
It was something similar to
Something
that,
like, yeah, right.
It was like you faked
And then walked away from the
it. Yeah.
the cross-examination. Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
can I just say this? In that time when they were questioning him and he began to cry, our soldiers we are compassionate about them having a little shell shock from what happened in the war. This was the same in a different
It's
scenario.
post-traumatic stress.
Traumatic stress. So why aren't they a little sympathetic for the fact that
The
a year
same
later,
stress that
was
Raines
hidden?
defended
That's
the
right.
officers against when they went in after Lavelle Mixon and they had to set the SWAT team down
Right.
for 2, 3, 4 months so that they could recover from that shooting scene. Now he's got surely compassion for the officers,
Right.
But I thought the officer's duty was to protect
Right.
and to serve. And if that is their duty, one would think that their attorney would have some kind of compassion for a young man that they were paid to protect and to serve, yet they murdered him.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I really agree with that, because shock is a self-defense mechanism, like you were saying.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that, you got your guard up for a reason, so you can just get through the day.
Yes, ma'am.
But with time, a lot of times,
Over there, so.
boy, that's when the pain starts to come in.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm wondering, what was of the impact?
There have been jurors who have not been as attentive as maybe we would like. I know Wanda wouldn't complain. Once Raines gets up, it puts you to sleep, I have to tell you.
Oh,
His method and the way that he's questioning the prosecution witnesses is a bit difficult to be attentive with. However, I think that Jamil's sincerity
Right.
shines clear
Yeah.
that you cannot just erase this as an accident. For if I were driving at 100 miles an hour on a highway and hit and kill somebody, I can call it an accident. But they're not going to call it an accident when law enforcement comes along. They're going to come along right away, and this is going to be considered a crime.
Hey, Minister Muhammad, can I add?
Well, yes, sir.
And I think, kind of relating to you, that even, definitely one juror burst out in tears. You know, the judge was like, whoa, you know, and said, let's take the break, and, you know, didn't give no instructions. He was emotionally affected. Everybody was. One juror was visibly affected because she burst into tears. So when Raines did that attack, I believe, personally, you know, especially with the one that had the emotion, probably got a little angry,
Good.
as well as us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Raines actually got frustrated because he couldn't turn it the way he wanted to turn it.
Right.
So I think he really ended his assault based on that. He knew that he was getting ready to cross the line if he kept trying to drill to make the point that you fake it. Basically, that's what he wanted
yeah,
to say.
exactly.
Yes, sir.
In a stress situation, like a war zone or murder, things will come back to you later that
Yes,
didn't
sir.
happen to you emotionally in the moment,
Yes, sir.
and something will trigger it, and then it all comes flooding up again. And that's probably what happened on the witness stand.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
hadn't seen that for a year. He had been pushing it aside, trying to get past it, and then there it was right in front of him. And then something you said earlier about Meserly, and also about Oscar. You said, Oscar said, "Don't tase me." And they were trying to make it out like he saw him have a taser. But he had been tased once before.
Right.
That's a traumatic
He well understood what
event.
that meant.
So he's in a high-stress situation, confronting an officer who he knows is capable of doing that again. He doesn't have to see a taser to say, "Don't tase me." That's like a kid who's been beaten, and all the father has to do is pull the strap and, "No, don't hit me again," whether
And he
the
had
father
seen-
intends to
and
do it or not.
He had seen a taser because he took a picture of Medley.
Right.
That's
The
right.
last
Yes, he
photograph
did.
So,
Oscar took on his
so
cell
that was
phone
a
camera.
perfectly logical reaction.
The newest video or photographic evidence that we've
Right.
seen is actually Oscar's photograph.
And then,
And
Wow.
that photograph was as he was sitting on the ground. And there's some footage from other videos you see when Oscar has his phone in his hand. So the idea or the notion that Oscar was offering a threat is really eliminated by the fact that he's talking on the phone, and he took that phone when Meserly arrived because Meserly came with taser in hand
Ready.
and then there's one
and
other.
pulled that taser out more than once and put it back in its holster more than once. So the idea that this man, who within 2 minutes had been to that taser twice, but then in the moment of killing Oscar, he don't know where he put it.
Right.
Within 2.5 minutes, he had that taser in his hand twice in the cross draw. It was mounted on his left hip. He crossed through that taser twice.
Where was his gun?
His gun was on his right hand.
You never know the difference between the right and left?
You knew it.
Well, we all know. We all know.
We
So
know.
The other thing.
here's a concern, though, that we should be very clear on. Because the prosecutor has not objected
Yeah.
to anything
Yeah.
that Mr. Raines has said nor done. Even if Mr. Raines said, yeah, right, the prosecutor should have said, I object to badgering our witness.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no, why?
He's making a statement to the jury that's from the attorney, it's not from the witness.
Actually, it's an objection of argument. It's an
Yeah.
argumentative objection.